So yesterday we saw about how the hyperconjugation happens in the case of carbocation. Now let us see how it happens with free radicals. The process is exactly same, the method is exactly same. Here you can see there is a radical. So instead of making a complete breaking of bond like this, now what would happen here? There will be an homolytic cleavage, which means a fishhook arrow should be shown that one electron will go to the hydrogen, one electron will stay with this carbon. Now these two radicals will terminate to form double bond, and this H which is there gets isolated. Okay, so 1 2 3 4 bonds here also. So 1 2 3 4 bonds here also, same number of bonds, except that this sigma bond has converted into pi bond. So that is what happens. It is also a sigma pi conjugation, but this time it is between a sigma pi with a free radical. Okay students, so we will get three canonicals, one with this hydrogen making a no bond. Here also it is making a no bond. Here also it is making a no bond. The earlier hydrogen were supposed to be cations. I mean, they used to be positively charged. Here they used to be radicals. Here they will be radicals. Everybody got this idea now? Based on that, if you check it out, if you have to analyze the stability, it's pretty simple. Between these three, you will simply count the number of alpha hydrogens. More the number of alpha hydrogens, more is its stability. So you can see number of alpha hydrogens here are 3, 3 and 3. So 9 here, 6 here and 2 here. So let me just write down that. Alpha hydrogens 9 here, okay, 6 here, and alpha hydrogens here are only 2. Okay, so which makes this A greater than B greater than C in terms of stability, also in terms of number of hyperconjugated structures also. Similarly, if we check out the second one here, we will just count the number of alpha hydrogens first. So with respect to this carbon here, the adjacent carbon, next carbon will be alpha carbon. With respect to this carbon here, the adjacent carbon, this one and this one will be alpha carbon. The other side is a double bond, so we will not be counting anything which is present on the double bond. So here, with respect to that, there is one alpha carbon here. Okay, now if we check out here, with respect to this, there are two alpha carbons, and with respect to this, you will see there is an alpha carbon here also. So here, if you check it out carefully, this first one has resonance as well. Sorry, first one only has hyperconjugation here, because if the dot was here, then that would have shown resonance. Dot is here. And how many alpha hydrogens do we have here? Only one. So the number of alpha hydrogens which you can see is only one. While alpha hydrogens here, if you check it out, how many are there? 5 of them. 5 plus resonance is also happening. Okay, everybody. Next, C case, if you check it out, alpha hydrogens, how many? 2 of them. Here alpha hydrogens, how many do we see? 4 of them. Here alpha hydrogens, how many do we see? 2 alpha hydrogens. Here we see is are 2. Okay, plus reso, right? Plus resonance happening. So this has resonance as well as 5 alpha hydrogens, so that makes it more stable. So B will be more stable, then E will be more stable. Now guys, right, so now just check it out about C here. C is on sp hybridized carbon, right? So that makes it highly unstable radical, because this radical cannot shift. Even if you make a double bond, what kind of a double bond you will get? You will get a double bond like this, right? Do you know in cyclic form, in cyclohexane, this type of a double bond exists or what? It won't exist now. So which means, does it give this, even though there is an alpha hydrogen, does it give the hyperconjugation here? It won't be able to give hyperconjugation, right? So therefore B, E, then what should be the answer? D, right? Then A, then C. This will be the stability. Acha, what about the bond strength between carbon and hydrogen before breaking up? Imagine If this originally, this was the molecule like this, okay? This was the original molecule with CH2 and H. Now I have to break this bond, okay? Now, after breaking the bond, if it is becoming more stable, which means this bond energy would be less. It requires less amount of energy to break the bond because the molecule forming as a product is more stable. Is that clear, everybody? So you should check out the stability. Wherever the stability is maximum, there the carbon hydrogen bond strength would be minimum. Wherever the stability is minimum, there the carbon hydrogen bond strength will be maximum. So if the bond energy between carbon hydrogen before breaking that has been asked, then what should be the answer here now? C should be greater than A, then D, then E and B. We have CH2H like this, and I'm comparing any two. CH2, here one more hydrogen, CH3. Imagine these are A and B. I have to compare bond energy when I have to break this bond and this bond, how much amount of energy is required. Since I don't know at this particular structure how to discuss it, what I will do, I will check out their respective product after breaking. After breaking, you know that this will become CH2 dot radical and this will become this CH3 and radical here. This is how they will become after breaking the bond, carbon hydrogen bond. Now, instead, I don't know how much energy is required here, but I know the stability of these two. Since I know that this is more stable than the first one, the second one is more stable than the first one, I can always say that since this is coming to be more stable, this bond could be easily broken as compared to the other bond. Now, everybody, check out hyperconjugation in alkenes. How do we check out in alkenes? See, you may have learned that when a molecular orbitals are formed, it is the atomic orbitals which will add up, right? Suppose if we have linear combination of atomic orbitals. Now, if at all they are adding in the same phase, you know that a molecular orbital will form above and below. This is called the bonding kind or bonding molecular orbital, which we write it as pi only. But in case if the addition happens plus and minus and plus, they will become anti-bonding molecular orbital. Their shape looks something like this. Now, whenever a hybridized orbital also connects with the other atom, they will also possess both sigma. Suppose if there is a pi bond forming, there will be pi present, there will be pi star also present. So this will be a pi star orbital. Same thing here, whenever we see a bonding kind, suppose, usually we do not write pi star unless there is any use of it. Generally, we write only pi bonds and sigma bonds. So suppose if you have this molecule, which is CH3, CH double bond CH2. So imagine this molecule. Here I'm showing all the pi bonds. Between these two carbons, I have one pi bond here. This is a regular pi bond. And between these two nucleus, there should be pi star also. And the pi star will always be away from this nucleus. You can see that. If these two are nucleus, the pi star will always go away from the nucleus. So that's how they are going away from the nucleus here. Now pi stars are always empty when you write the molecular orbital configuration or molecular orbital configuration for this molecule here. You will find that their pi star always empty. Now since the pi star is empty and more projected or more directed towards this bond here, it is close to this bond, right? As soon as you have CH double bond CH2 connected to an sp3 carbon, you know that this is an sp3 carbon which has at least one alpha hydrogen, then we could see that the bonded electrons here will start supporting the pi star orbital. And slowly from pi star, these electrons will start moving on to this side. CH2 electrons will start moving onto this side, and this will become a pure pi orbital here, pure p orbital here, and here a double bond will start developing. So first it will enter into pi star, from there it will start becoming a pi orbital. Everybody clear on that? So the hyperconjugation will always happen from the sigma bond here towards the pi star orbital of the double bond. That's how the sigma bond has been formed. So this is a JE question, everybody. You must know which type of an overlap is happening during the hyperconjugation in alkenes. So it is a pi sigma pi star empty orbital overlapping happening. And as this overlap happens, double bond will form here, and this hydrogen will lose out its electrons. So this will become H plus, and here this double bond will shift onto this carbon. This will become CH2 minus. So that is how the hyperconjugation takes place. And if you have all the hydrogens present, once hyperconjugation will happen on with respect to this hydrogen, second with respect to this hydrogen, third with respect to this hydrogen. So we can have here this as one of the canonical and this as one of the canonical. So three canonicals can be formed here with this hyperconjugation. And how does the hybrid look like now? Check out in hybrid, we have carbon and all of these are dotted lines. There is a partial double bond character developed here, and this double bond is moving on to single bond by giving this negative charge on it. You can see bond order here was 1, which is trending towards 0. Between these two, bond order was 1, which is trending towards 2, and bond order was 2, which is trending towards 1. So this is exactly what is happening in hybrid. So this type of a conjugation is called sigma pi star conjugation, and obviously more the number of alpha hydrogens, more is its stability. Now let us see this. Suppose I am considering the case where all the alpha hydrogens are same. Just count number of alpha hydrogens in this case. Alpha hydrogens are 6 here, alpha hydrogens are 6 here, and alpha hydrogens are 6 here. Right. So in this, we can say that between cis and trans, we can say trans is more stable. But when it comes to isobutene, how do we compare? Check this out. In case of isobutene, we know if at all I put the entire structure, check out, it is double bond here with CH3 like this, okay, with CH2. Now what is happening here? One of the hydrogen will break from here. Let me show that also. One of the hydrogen will break from here and supports as a double bond, and this double bond will move here. Okay. Now when it moves, what would happen? We will get CH2, CH3 here, and CH2 minus is what we will get. If you do the same thing for cis molecule, in cis molecule we have CH2H with hydrogen here, C double bond C, CH3 and hydrogen here. This is how it is. So here also this bond is breaking, supporting it as a double bond, and C minus will come. So what do we get? We will get CH2 double bond CH and single bond C minus CH3 and H. I think you can imagine the same thing happening with trans also. So the product which has formed, or the intermediate which has formed for stabilizing, if you see here, it is a 1 degree carbon, here it is a 2 degree carbon. So 1 degree anion and 2 degree anions, if you compare, which is more stable? 1 degree, right? 1 degree carbon anions, always smaller is more stable. Okay, so here it is 1 degree more stable than 2 degree, then 3 degree, and so on. When it comes to carbo anions, carbocations, 3 degrees more stable than 2 degree than 1 degree. We have learned that from inductive effect. So we can clearly see that this CH3 is actually trying to donate electrons, where carbon already has a lot of pair of a lone pair already present on it. On top of that, if CH3 will push electrons towards that through inductive effect, that will become unstable carb anion, which is not otherwise present in 1 degree carb anion. So if you compare isobutane with cisbutane or transbutane, see the same thing will happen in the transbutane also. This is exactly the same structure you will see in transbutane, except that this position is changed, that's all. This methyl and hydrogen position is changed. Okay, so here we'll have hydrogen CH3, here we'll have hydrogen and CH3. Here also it is secondary. So now you can tell me what should be the stability order, everybody. So stability order would be isobutene, right? So more stable, then trans, then cis, because between cis and trans we divided by we decided on the basis of van der Waal repulsions. Here cis will have methyl methyl van der Waal repulsions, which is otherwise absent in trans. Okay, everybody, I hope you understood that isobutene how it is. Now the same logic you have to apply for meta and paraxylene also, and tell me which is more stable. Okay, everyone. So first make a note of this one. Next we'll do the para and metaxylene. Look over the next term, sacrificial hyperconjugation. See, if the contributing structure has only one bond less than the normal Lewis structure, then the original ion or atom, then we call it as sacrificial hyperconjugation. Sacrificial hyperconjugation usually happens when you have sigma and pi star empty overlapping. Usually we'll see in these cases. Suppose here in the same toluene case, we can observe here between these two. You can see here there are how many bonds beta? 1, 2, 3, 4 with a double bond. Okay. Count the bonds where there is any change that comes. So you can check out here bond number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. These are the 5 bonds which you have where some change will come. Now if I write the hyperconjugated structures for the same, right? How does that look like? First there will be dotted line here, right? Got it? Or rather I'll writing the hyperconjugated structure. So complete plus charge here. Okay. And this double bond will come here and minus charge will come here. Okay. So now if you count the total number of bonds which are feasible here is 1, 2, 3, 4, correct? And this 5 bond here. Can you see that? 1, 2, 3, and this was the 4th bond which was present here, and 5th one. But here now if you count 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds are only present. This double bond has become minus, right beta? So originally structure had 5 bonds. Now the structure, if you check it out, it has 1, 2, 3 and this 4th bond. So there are only 4 bonds. Okay, everyone, check this. So in sacrificial hyperconjugation, we see that one of the bond will be less than the normal Lewis structure. Here we are seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where the change would happen. Here we are seeing that 1, 2, 3, 4 is only present. The same thing would happen in the next hyperconjugated structure also. This will be here. Double bond must have moved. One double bond will be formed here. This will be positive charge, double bond, and minus must have formed here. This type of a hyperconjugation is called sacrificial hyperconjugation, where one bond is less than that of the normal Lewis structure. Okay. Got it? You can write it in a bit. Let me explain all the type of hyperconjugations. The second type is isovalent hyperconjugation. Now in this hyperconjugation, same number of bonds as that of normal Lewis structure. Suppose if you check in the case of carbocations, we are making the overlap between sigma and empty orbital, directly empty p orbital. Now here when the hyperconjugation takes place, one of the hydrogen will fetch plus charge here and this bond will shift as a double bond. So double bond will happen here. So if you count the number of bonds here, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds earlier. Now also it has 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds. So number of bonds are intact. Same number of bonds are present. So it would be isovalent hyperconjugation. Okay, students. Last one, if you check out, this is called the negative or reverse hyperconjugation. In this case, the donation of electron from a filled p orbital to the sigma pi star orbital, sigma star orbital is happening. So from a non-bonding means lone pairs, non-bonding towards sigma star orbital happens here. So for example, if at all I take this as this molecule, you can see CF3 connected to CH2 minus. Because fluorines are strongly withdrawing group, they will withdraw electrons from carbon. So carbon becomes electron deficient. So it requires electrons where CH2 minus can donate to that. And this fluorine will take away the electrons from the sigma bonds, and it would come out of F minus. So you will see F, C, F here with double bond CH2 and F minus forming like this. Just the reverse of what we have learning so far. If it was hydrogen here, we used to think the reverse way, right? And with carbocation. Here it is with carb anion trying to make a reverse hyperconjugation. Got it? The evidence for the same will be on the basis of carbon fluorine bond order. The bond order is decreasing from 1 towards 0. Okay, so carbon fluorine bond order. So bond order of carbon and fluorine is changing from 1 towards 0. So this type of a cases usually see when you have CCl3 connected with CH2 minus, okay, or CF3 connected with some CHR minus, any kind of a minus present here. So not very prominent when you have only two chlorines or one chlorine, but you should have at least three fluorines or three chlorines. Then the reverse hyperconjugation is more active. Everybody understood this point? So three types of hyperconjugations. Just make a note of it: sacrificial hyperconjugation, sacrificial isovalent, and reverse hyperconjugation. See, delta H of combustion will always be proportional to the number of carbon atoms. More the number of carbon atoms, more is the heat of combustion. In case if it is an isomeric group, like for example, if I take butane, right? Butane here, and if at all I take this butane, two butane and one butane, these are isomeric to each other. They are just positional isomers. So in case of isomers, then you have to check out the stability. More the stability, less will be the combustion. Okay. The first priority is always about number of carbon atoms, students. Is this point clear, everyone? We will always check more number of carbons and give that as a high priority for heat of combustion. Okay. So based on that, let us do few questions. See first one. Here there are 3 carbons, 4 carbons, 5 carbons and 6 carbons. Which one will have more delta H of combustion in this case? 6 carbons case. Right, beta? Same way, here if I take this as A, B, C, count the number of carbons here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So less than, na beta? Sorry, A greater than, B greater than C. That will be delta H of combustion. Next, if you see the next case here, we have isobutene, cisbutene and transbutene. We just learned what should be the combustion order now. Correct. So if you check out A, B, C here, right, the most unstable form is which one? B. So that will have more amount of combustion, then C, then A, B, C, A. Right, students. Next one. If you check out the combustion here, this is about tert-butyl in cyclohexane cases. Tert-butyl in cyclohexane cases. So we know that tert-butyl will exhibit in chair form, and that too it will exist in equatorial position. And here equatorial will become trans, and equatorial axial will become cis. So there is a cis form here, clear? While in this case, sorry, this is a trans form here. So position is here. So 1 comma 3. So 1 2 3 here if you check out. So normally how do we have this structure? So we will have this as the equatorial form and axial form. And here we can see axial would be cis to each other, and equatorial will be cis to each other. So here it is given as a transform. So transform means this methyl would be on the axial position. On the second case, if you check out here, these two are cis to each other. So this will exhibit methyl on this equatorial position. So which is more stable between these two? Second one is more stable, correct? So this one is more stable. So which means this will have less, correct? So if at all I take this as A and B or 1 or 2, then A will be having more delta H combustion than B. Okay, I think all of you got this point. Just make a note of it fast. Delta H combustion. Let's discuss about heat of hydrogenation. Heat of hydrogenation, normally written as delta H of HYD or delta H of hydro. This tells us for 1 mole of the reactant, whatever the number of H2 molecules you add to give an alkane, then the amount of energy released is hydrogenation. Now this released energy depends upon the stability of this alkene. Now if the number of pi bonds are same, then you should look out for the stability. If the number of pi bonds are more, that will always be more with delta H hydrogenation. So it is directly related to number of pi bonds. More number of pi bonds, more will be the value of delta H. If you have same number of pi bonds, then you will look out for the stability of the molecule. Check out in this case. Suppose if I have to consider A, B, C here, correct? So you will check out the stability here. So here there are only 2 hyperconjugated hydrogens. Here there are 6 of them. Here also we have 6 of them. Got it? So here alpha hydrogens are only 2. Alpha hydrogens are 6. Alpha hydrogens are 6 here. So which is most stable out of these 3? C is most stable. So which means delta H hydrogen will be least for it. So delta H hydrogenation, if it was asked, then what would be the case here? A would be greater than B greater than C. If stability was asked, it would be exactly reverse of it. So A will be less than, right? A will be less than, B will be less than C. Okay, beta. Now this thing works fine with simple straight chains or even cyclic chains, except in the aromatic cases. When aromaticity comes, aromatic compounds becomes highly stable. I fetched some data from the sources. Check out. If you see, there is one double bond in cyclohexene and we add H2, the amount of energy we are expecting to release is minus 120 and the same amount of energy is released. And there is no resonance energy as there is no resonance happening here. But if you have diene here, cyclohexene, hexadiene, then expected is double of this, right? Because for every double bond, if it is minus 120, for 2 double bonds, I should get minus 240. But the actual amount comes is minus 232, which tells us that it is because of some resonance energy, and minus 8 is the resonance energy. While if you see benzene, we are expecting minus 360, but it is only giving minus 208. So there is a drastic decrease in the delta H hydrogenation, which means benzene has become very stable, got it, as compared to that of this here, if you can see. So the resonance energy is very high in the case of benzene. And that is precisely what happens in aromatic compounds, that is how we will differentiate whether it is an aromatic compound or a general compound. Aromatic compounds will have very high resonance energy and less delta H hydrogenation. Okay. Now from this data, we can be able to say what would happen to delta H hydrogenation in the case of, diene here, in the case of cyclohexene here, and in the case of benzene. So if you compare these, you can see highest is for which one, beta? So between these 3, second one, which means this one. So here it is highest than this. So here you can see it is violating the number of pi bonds, correct? Otherwise, more the number of pi bonds, more should be delta H hydrogenation. But in this case, it is not so much valid because benzene get immense stability and has high resonance energy. In thermochemistry, you may have learned how to calculate resonance energy using this, same fundamental. Okay, right. So that's how you will check out delta H hydrogenation. There is one exception which comes, if it comes to stability of This we have just learned how to check out the stability for these three. This is isobutene, this is cis-butene, this is trans-butene. We learned that isobutene, if you take this as A, B, C, we learned that A should be more stable as compared to that of C as compared to that of B. Okay, but if you check out delta H hydrogenation, okay, when it comes to delta H hydrogenation here, there is a less energy given by trans instead of isobutene. So slightly less energy. Just I would suggest you to remember like an exception. Okay, so this is the only exception you will find in the case of delta H hydrogenation. Okay, make a note everybody. Possibly the two bulky groups of methyl will not allow hydrogen to add easily. Okay, beta. Okay, considering that, just check out question 4 and 5. Those who have finished, they can start question 4 and 5. First write the stability order, then write the hydrogenation. BC, oh sorry, 1 minute, I forgot one double bond here. I forgot one double bond here, sorry. Bond, yeah. I wanted to take same bonds. Please change that structure carefully. So we can see A is more stable as compared to B. Okay. And C does not have resonance. D does not have resonance. Moreover, it is a cumulative double bonds are unstable. So this would be the stability order A, B, C, D. Well, hydrogenation, because this is the most unstable form, that would release more amount of energy. So D would be more delta H hydration compared to C, compared to B, and compared to A. Here, first check out the number of pi bonds for hydrogenation. But anyways, for stability, you just have to check out resonance and hyperconjugation. The E has most amount of resonance because all pi bonds are involved in here. So E will be the most stable one. Then, if you see here, there is a cross conjugation. No, sorry. No conjugation here. Got it? You just have to check out the number of alpha hydrogens. So here, if you check out, we have 2 and 1, 3 alpha hydrogens. Here we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 of them. So which is more stable here? A is more stable. So A, then comes B, and these two are isolated. Basically, there is no resonance. So you will just check out the number of alpha hydrogens here. So 2, 2, and 3. So 7. While here we have 1 and 2, 3. So which is more stable here? C is more stable than D. Okay, students. Now what will be delta H hydrogenation? What will be the delta H hydrogenation? See, first check out the number of pi bonds. Number of pi bonds are maximum for E. So E will be most, even though it is more stable, that will have more amount of delta H hydrogenation because number of pi bonds are more there. Next, here, then it will be D, then C, then B, A. Right. This has been asked a lot of times, you know, so please be aware of it. Don't make mistakes in exam. Next, C, sixth one, check out here. Just count the number of alpha hydrogens. That should fetch you an answer. So here there is only one alpha hydrogen. Right, beta. Here we have 6, 7, 8. So alpha hydrogens are 8. And here if we check out how many do we have? Here we have 6 plus 2, 8. Okay, we have alpha hydrogen as 8. All we can see is this is a cis form here, correct? And this is a trans form here, correct? But you have to always check out the bulky groups. Understood? Between these two, methyl and methyl, is it more bulky or methyl and ethyl is more bulky in terms of repulsions? In terms of repulsions, methyl and ethyl will be more repulsive, right? These two will be more repulsive. So between these two, stability wise, if we check it out, so which is more stable, everybody? B is more stable, then C, then A. In spite of being cis here, this is more stable. Okay, everybody. And delta H hydrogenation here, exactly opposite of it. So A will be more than C, then B. Okay, everyone, make a note fast. Check the next one. No? This is about reaction intermediates. So the next topic is about reaction intermediates. Basically, during the reaction, we will get certain intermediates and we name them. Some of them are called electrophiles, some of them are called nucleophiles. Okay. In fact, we use this electrophiles and nucleophiles as reagents also. Reagents means the agent which will decide the product. Understood? Suppose if there is a double bond on which you are adding H2. So H2 will decide the product. Understood? So that's why H2 can be called as reagent. Like that, electrophiles and nucleophiles can be formed as an intermediates, or they will be act as reagents in the reactions. First, let us understand what are electrophiles. Electrophiles are electron deficient, 2 electron deficient. So that clearly tells us that if you have CH3 plus and CH3 dot, which has 2 electron deficiency, this has 2 electron deficiency, this does not have 2 electron deficiency, it has only 1 electron deficiency. So radicals are never electrophiles, mind you students, okay? Only positive charge or an empty orbital ones will act like electrophiles, and they will be electron loving species. Hence, all electron loving species where a pair is to be accepted is Lewis acids, right? So all electrophiles are also Lewis acids. What are the positively charged Lewis electrophiles? Positively charged which have incomplete octet. Some of the examples: H plus, CH3 plus, in fact any R plus, any alkyl plus, and Cl plus, NO2 plus, okay, NO plus, PHN2 plus, these are all electrophiles. Now you might think, sir, how about metals which have Na plus, K plus? These are very stable forms. They are stable, hence not electrophiles. Okay, students, they are by nature very stable because sodium itself is unstable. Once it becomes sodium ion, Na plus, it will become highly stable. So it would respectively want to be in Na plus rather than being Na. Okay, that is about positively charged electrophiles. Neutral charged electrophiles, which are incomplete octet, like boron element, boron compounds, BF3, BH3, BCl3, similarly aluminum compounds, AlCl3, okay. Similarly, carbenes, CCl2, these are called carbenes. It would have an empty orbital here. So these are dichlorocarbenes. Dichlorocarbenes. This type of family of compounds where carbon has only 2 bonds connected, those are called carbenes. If there are chlorines present, we call it as dichlorocarbenes. So all of these are examples of being neutral incomplete octet electrophiles. Okay. Next, neutral complete octet with empty d orbitals. Suppose if I take FeCl3, okay, ZnCl2, correct, SnCl2, okay, SnCl4, SnCl2, okay, Cl2, otherwise Br2, right? So they will have empty d orbitals. All of these which are neutral species, but they will have empty d orbitals. They will also act like electrophiles. Okay, as we go ahead in the reaction chemistry, we will see a lot of this would be involved in reactions. Similarly, neutral complete octet with delta positive present on it. Here, there is a complete octet, but there is a delta positive present on it. Those type can also act like electrophiles. For example, if we have O double bond C double bond O. Now we know that carbon will have delta positive. So this particular site of carbon will act like an electrophile. Similarly, if you have H, C double bond O and H, same way this carbon which has delta positive because of the oxygen pulling on it, will act like an electrophilic site. SO3, for instance, S double bond O, double bond O, double bond O. This has in fact both. It has an empty d orbital also, but at the same time it has quite a high delta positive charge on it. So that will also make it to act like an electrophile. Okay, student. These are the types of electrophiles which you will see. In short, electrophiles are electron loving species. They will have an empty orbital always. Okay. Next, nucleophiles. Nucleophiles are electron donors, the ones which will donate electrons. They will be nucleus loving and they will act like Lewis bases. So anything which can donate electrons. See, most of the anions will always donate electrons. So which includes Cl minus, F minus, okay. We have Br minus, got it, I minus halides, cyanide minus, Cn minus, okay, OH minus, RO minus, CH3 minus, okay, RS minus. So we can have a lot of them. So RCOO minus, N3 minus azide, okay, and RMGX, in RMGX, which is known as Grignard's reagent, here we have plus and minus, so this will also act like an anionic form. Gilman's reagent, where it is R minus and lithium has plus, they will also act like nucleophiles. These are all nucleophiles. There are certain nucleophiles which are neutral but has lone pairs on it, like ammonia, which is neutral with a lone pair. Water, neutral with a lone pair. Okay. And amines, RNH2, neutral with a lone pair. Okay. Primary amines, secondary amines, tertiary amines, all of them will act. Ethanols, right, or any form of alcohols, they will have lone pairs. Thiols, RSH, they will have lone pairs on it. So they will also act like nucleophiles because they have lone pair present on them. Next, ambidentate nucleophile. Ambidentate nucleophile means it will have two sides of nucleophiles. Okay, for instance, if you take O minus N double bond O, here nitrogen has a site. This can also donate electrons. Oxygen can also donate electrons. Depending upon the molecule, depending upon the species, either oxygen might donate or nitrogen might donate. So these are ambidentate nucleophiles. Similarly, cyanides, CN, there is a lone pair present on nitrogen, and because of this negative charge coming on carbon, that is also a site for nucleophile, which means they will also donate electrons. Okay. So another example is enolate. Enolate ions. Enolate ion, as in we have CH2 minus with C double bond OH. These kind of ions where carbon can donate electrons or oxygen's lone pair can also be donated as nucleophiles. Okay, these are called ambidentate nucleophiles. Last one, ambiphiles. Ambiphiles means they will act both electrophilic as well as nucleophilic. Like in case if we check out C double bond, basically in CO2, we know that this has delta positive, but this will have delta negative also, no? With lone pairs present on it. So if electrophile approaches, it will accept electrophiles. If nucleophile is coming, it will accept nucleophile also. So these type of molecules are called ambiphiles, where both electrophilic and nucleophilic site are present. Similarly, if you have CH3, C triple bond N. Now here, lone pair present on nitrogen will accept electrophiles, and carbon which has high delta positive will accept nucleophiles. This will accept nucleophiles. Another example, you can see CH3, C double bond O, H. If you have, this has two lone pairs present on it with delta negative, and this carbon is delta positive. So this will accept electrophiles, and here nucleophile can combine on this carbon because of its positive charge. So these are all ambiphiles. Everyone got these two terms? Make a note of it. Reaction intermediates. Now on that note, let us check out what is mesomeric effect or resonance effect. A resonance effect, also known as plus or minus or effects. Mesomeric effect can also be categorized as plus M or minus M effect. For our understanding, we will consider plus or plus M as same, minus or minus M as same. Okay. At least for our understanding, we will not differentiate that. Right? There is a very thin line of difference there, but we will not worry about that. Okay. Next, whenever there is an electron being accepted from the main chain, or electrons being given to the main chain, which has a conjugated system, then we will have M effects or mesomeric effects seen. And this type of effects, as you can see, are called as mesomeric effects. Suppose if a group in which the first atom bears negative charge, okay, or it has a lone pair, they will usually show plus M effect only. Please remember this, either they should have a negative charge or they should have lone pair, then they will usually show plus M effect only. Next, if you have positive charge or an empty orbital, they usually show minus M effect. Right? So this is the way you have to think about it. Now check out as the examples here. Suppose there is a lone pair present on this atom. I'm taking this as the reference atom here. Now with respect to this, if we check out what is Z doing here, it is donating electrons. Okay. Then this CH2 double bond CH is moving. So we can say that this group is accepting electrons, so it is giving plus M, minus M effect because it is achieving minus charge, and Z is donating electrons, so it is giving plus M effect. I guess all of you understood this point. So the reference will always be with respect to the donation and acceptance. The group which is accepting, we call it as taking minus M effect, or in short, because it will get minus charge on it, we call it as minus M. This group will get plus charge on it, that's why we call it as plus M. Same way here, you can see there is a plus charge present on, second one, check out. There is a minus charge present on Z and which is moving towards this side. So again, with respect to this, this is accepting electrons, so it is minus M. This is donating electrons, so this is plus M. So Z would become plus M effect there, plus M group there. And CH2 double bond CH will become a minus M group in this case. The characteristic of CH2 double bond CH might change depending upon different group. Now here, if you check out here what it is happening, Z is positive charge, which means it will never donate electrons. It will only accept electrons now. So this will give electrons onto this side, and carbon, this carbon will get positive charge, hence this is donating species, so this will be plus M effect, and zinc will get electrons, Z will get electrons, so that would become minus M effect. Same way here, if you check out Z, if you consider here, consider if Z is more electronegative, electronegativity wise, if Z is more electronegative than electronegativity of carbon in this case, correct? Then instead of electrons going onto the left hand side, they will move on to the right hand side. Now also we can say between these two species, this is a donating one, this is an accepting one. Okay, clear? Everybody understood this point? Just write these examples. What is plus M minus M? And just show these 4 examples, everybody. Here, these are the reference atom. This atom and this atom are reference atom. That would be the first atom on which you will get either a charge. Which of the following are more plus M giving electrons, which means which can donate electrons much faster rate compared to the other ones. If you check out that, see, first the ones which has negative charge, they are unstable species. They want to donate electrons as soon as possible. So always check out for unstable species. If they are negatively charged, they will be the strong plus M donating groups, which means they will donate electron at a much faster rate. Out of that also, if you have same charge, like nitrogen has minus charge, oxygen has minus charge, then compare electronegativity. Less electronegative, more donation. Okay, because it does not want to keep the negative charge with it, it can donate electrons faster. So NH minus will be better donating than O minus. Then again, if you consider all of this, here you can see that the order would be on the basis of donation of electrons here. Got it? So NH2 will be more donating, NHR, then NR2 here, right? Everyone. So NR2 is strongly donating, then NHR, then NH2, then OH, OR, got it? Here this is slight exception between OH and OR, got it? NHCOR, NHC double bond, NHC double bond OR with OC double bond OR. Like this, the entire series is. Don't worry about analyzing it right away. Okay, we will take one of the groups at a time and discuss it. For example, if you take plasm of halides, yes, beta. So if you see the plasm effect, in case of fluorine, when fluorine donates electrons to carbon, it is about 2p2p pi bond formation. While chlorine donating means 3p2p, bromine means 4p2p, iodine means it is 5p2p. So which will make a better bonding out of this? Fluorine will make better bonding. That's why plasm is more effective with fluorine as compared to chlorine, bromine and iodine. Okay, student? Same way if we check out on the basis of electronegativity, NH2 is better, but here N is not better. The minute it has a split resonance or the cross resonance, one side there is carbon on which it has to donate, on the other side also there is carbon on which it has to donate. So when the split resonance happens, its magnitude of donating power decreases. So in that case, OH will become better than this. Okay, everybody understood that? So single resonance or single-sided donation is always better than two-sided donation. Okay, although it is electronegatively less. When it comes to nitrogen, you can see it is less electronegative. So when it comes to nitrogen, it is less electronegative, but yet it would be less stable, less plasm effect giving compared to that of OH. And the reason for that is this would give only donation on one side. Here it has to give donation on two sides. So this is a split resonance or cross conjugation. Okay, everybody. Other groups you can analyze. Here you can see O and H, OH here, OR here. Okay. Although OR is donating almost, OH and OR are almost the same donating ability. Got it? But because of some issues in OR group, you will see that OH will be better. Now, when it comes to minus I effect, if you just recall minus I effect, OH and OR, if you compare, both of them are oxygen only. Both of them should pull with same thing. And here there is an alkyl group which is donating. Expectation, what we expect is that, right, this would be strongly withdrawing. Students, please understand this. We have carbon connected to oxygen and R like this, and carbon connected to oxygen and H like this. And we are expecting that oxygen is withdrawing electrons. But here what we see that R is already donating, no? So we expect, why would oxygen pull electrons from carbon? While here oxygen, you know, it is accepting electrons from hydrogen, but why would it accept electrons from carbon? If you consider these two, which of them will be better? Then expected, what we think is that R is donating, so that might stabilize oxygen. So oxygen might not pull from carbon. But on the contrary, if you see, the actual kind is OH being less than OR. This is the actual one. Okay, OR is more withdrawing as compared to that of OH. When it comes to minus I, everybody remember that OR is more compared to that of OH. This comes with the fact that when it comes to carbon, oxygen, and let's say I take this as methyl group, CH3. And in this methyl group, if you consider oxygen is pulling from here, it is pulling from here also. This oxygen is pulling from which carbon, right? While here oxygen is pulling from hydrogen. Where does the pull will be easier? Now I have to compare electronegativity of these two. Second one, correct. Second one, it will pull easier. Because the pull from the hydrogen is easier, it won't pull very strongly with this side of the molecule. Understood? While here the pull is from carbon, correct? So it won't be able to pull that strongly. So it will pull strongly from left side also. Understood? So this is one distinction you will see when it comes to inductive effect. So that is why when you compare here, right, group wise, if you see OH is slightly better than OR because this would have slightly withdrawing nature. So not very much donating as much as that of OH. Okay. NH minus, the minute you have minus, which means it has extra electron and also unstable species. So it will be immediately ready to donate electrons. O minus, same way, extra electrons, correct, with minus charge on it, immediately ready to donate electrons. Okay, beta. And if you have any neutral charge, this is neutral, no charge on it, correct? So this would be relatively less donating as compared to that of one which has charges. Is that clear, beta? Why? Because once they release the charge, they'll become more stable. So they are ready to donate. Here, if it releases electrons, it will get a charge, no? This lone pair will go and it will get positive charge. So it is actually becoming unstable. While these two will become stable. So that's why negative ones will always be more plus M donating as compared to neutral ones. Okay, your plus M ability is decided on this basis, like it is connected to NH C double bond O CH3, and here is that double bond. Okay, and you are checking out whether the lone pair present on this nitrogen will donate here or not. If it donates, we will say it is giving plus M effect, benzene is taking minus M effect. Okay, but at the same time, if this lone pair is also donating towards this side, what would happen, beta? Its intensity to donate on this side will reduce or not? So its ability to donate plus M will be less. Now in case of minus M again we'll check out strongly withdrawing groups here. So NO2 is strongly withdrawing, then cyanide, then SO3H CHO. This is very much experimental. We cannot discuss more on that. I would suggest you to only remember these four. First, NO2, cyanide, SO3H, and aldehyde. After aldehyde, then you will have acids and everything else. Okay, ketones, acids, everything else. But these four are important in terms of minus M effect. No, only you have to remember halides, this and this. Only these three, everybody. The one which I highlighted. Halides, how they are, these three, how they are, and in case of minus M effect, how these four are. Next, rest of them you will go when you discuss chapter by chapter, you will come across here and there, but otherwise majorly questions asked would be on these three. Okay. Now check about plus M groups. Okay, keep writing with me now, everybody. Keep writing with me. So in case of plus M groups, if you have to discuss which of them is strongly donating, which of them is weakly donating, which will increase the electron density, these are the type of questions that will come. First question, compare electron density on benzene ring. Now imagine benzene is here, which is connected to some group G, and that group G could be OH, O minus, NH2, NH minus, NHCO, NHCH2, CO, CH3, and OCO, CH3. These groups are connected. I'll call it as A, B, C, D, E, and F. Now you have to compare all of this, which will increase the electron density more and which will not decrease the or increase the electron density. First of all, you can see all of them are giving plus M effect because all of them carry lone pairs. Anything that carries lone pair, lone pair, lone pair, lone pair here, lone pair, and they are all connected to benzene. So they will definitely give you plus M effect. That is one thing you got to understand. Okay. So once they are giving plus M effect, Now check which of them will be giving more electron density. Like I told you, the -1 will be the first ones. So which one will be the fast beta? D will be the highest, then B. After that, you have to check out the straight resonance between A and C. C is less electronegative, so easily donating. So C, then A. And then between these two, both of them are split resonance, so this is better. Again by electronegativity, E is better than F. Everybody check this. If you find any difficulty, please do ask. Now, you got to note one thing, that whenever you have all of these are plus M effect groups, if they are plus M effect groups, let's say I take OH here as an example, and OH will donate electrons. When it donate electrons, you will see this pi bond will move here. I'm just writing the canonicals for the same. I'll get double bond O, H plus electrons are donated, so delta negative here. So this is negative charge, and negative charge. Okay, arrows the other ways. Negative charge here, negative charge here, and yeah, okay. But now you can see this negative charge is moving on which position? Negative charge is moving on ortho position as well as para position. So that's where we call all plus M groups. Plus M groups are O and P directing groups. O and P directing groups means ortho-para directing groups. Suppose if an electrophile comes and approaches, where does it sit? It will either sit or get bonded on ortho position or para position. It will not go on to the meta position. That is what it meant. Any electrophile that comes, it will join at ortho or para position. That is why they are called ortho and para directing groups. So remember this, all plus M groups are OP directing groups. Check out the next group here. Suppose if we have fluorine, chlorine, bromine and iodine, what would be the magnitude of plus M? We just learned it. Fluorine will give better than chlorine. Correct. Remember that. It is only about plus M order. Okay. Next one, if you have CHO, NO2, cyanide, SO3H, here the order of minus M, because these are all minus M groups. Minus M groups, NO2 is stronger than Cn, greater than, right, than CHO. Okay. Now within this, if you check it out, suppose if at all I write one of the example as NO2. Now if you see N double bond O minus with nitrogen already has plus, like this. Now here what is happening, this pi is shifting towards nitrogen and this oxygen will shift electrons towards this lone pair pi bond will shift towards oxygen. So we'll have O minus, double bond here with plus and delta plus and this way. And this delta plus will keep moving around ortho and para position again. So here it will go double bond, delta positive will come here. I mean, I'll just put it as positive first. These are all canonicals. Then I'll show the hybrid. So O minus here with plus charge. And again, we will have one more canonical with this pi bond moving here. So plus charge, double bond, N, O minus, and O minus. Now, if you see these canonicals, I can write the hybrid as it is moving around the entire ring with oxygen. Oxygen here, there is a resonance with delta negative and delta negative. This is always positive. And delta positive, and delta positive. So from here, it is pretty much clear that the positive charge will always come in ortho and para position. So imagine if an electrophile approaches, this type of benzene, where will it approach beta? It will approach on meta position and not on ortho and para position. Hence, all minus M groups, will be meta-directing for electro. Everybody understood that? Plus M groups will be ortho-para directing and minus M groups will be meta-directing. Meta-directing means electrophile will be directed towards meta. Electrophile is approaching towards benzene. Now where does it attack? It will attack on meta position in this case. Earlier case, electrophile is approaching. Where does it attack? It will approach either on ortho position or para. True beta. When it comes to the overall withdrawing nature, suppose there is a difference in writing electron withdrawing nature, got it? Electron withdrawing group and writing only plus M group. It is giving resonance as plus M, but overall it is withdrawing group only. All of these halides. Understood? That will be studying in benzene. Got it? As of now, our idea is only to understand plus M and minus M. Ortho and para beta, they are OP directing. Means negative charge is here, na beta. So they will come here. Electrophile is always plus, right? It is coming empty, so it wants negative charge, no? So it will go on attack on ortho and para. Yes, plus M groups. These are all plus M groups, right? OH, whatever A, B, C, D, E, F, what we have taken, these are all plus M groups. When you have plus M group, externally an electrophile is approaching like this. Where does this electrophile go? Where does this electrophile go? It will go and combine at ortho and para position. Understood? Here there is a resonance always happening, na beta? That I have not written. O minus to O always be resonance, right? Got it? Even if benzene is not there, NO2 will always have this resonance happening. Clear? That's why I have written it. Clear? There is a line also. Yeah, there is a line there. Okay. Now come to this case. Suppose if you have S double bond O and R, and along with that there is a lone pair on it. Okay. Imagine it is connected to benzene. Got it? Suppose if this is connected to benzene, S double bond O with a lone pair and R. Now, problem is this pi bond can be shifted here and lone pair can, pi bond can move on to oxygen. That's how it is acting like a minus M group, which is withdrawing group. S double bond OR can act like a minus M group. But at the same time, this lone pair can be donated and this pi bond can shift here and it can give plus M also. So when plus M minus M, both of them are being coming into account, then you got to understand that their minus M is more preferred compared to that of their plus M. Is that clear? We cannot say plus M is not happening. We'll say the magnitude of minus M will be more than that of plus M. Clear, everybody? Another case like this, if we check out, is N double bond O with a lone pair. So this lone pair can be given here and pi bond can be moved towards this nitrogen. Both can happen. And when both happens here, we can say its minus M is more dominant towards that of its plus. Due to electronegativity, beta, carbon and sulfur you are considering, carbon and nitrogen you are considering, which is more electronegative? Sulfur is being more electronegative. So its ability to pull the electrons will be better than donating. No? Suppose if it is only between carbon and carbon, like if you have like this, we have CH double bond CH, got it? And nothing else. Like this it is given. Now it can be giving both effects equally. Like this side also it can go. And here CH double bond CH2 is giving plus M. At the same time, this pi bond can also come here to shift here. So it is also acting like minus M. Because it is between carbon and carbon only, here I can say the magnitude of plus M and minus M is almost the same. Okay. But suppose if there is one more case where we have CH double bond CH. Now here there is an electron withdrawing group by inductive effect or by resonance, it is trying to withdraw. Got it? So if there is an electron withdrawing group, right, then it can act both here also and this pi bond can move here also. Both can act, but which is more dominant here? Again, minus M will be more dominant over plus M. And last case, If there is CH double bond CH with electron donating group, if there is electron donating group here, then plus M will be more dominant. Clear? So this one and this one both will act here, which means plus M and minus M both are acting, but plus M is more dominant. Check this beta. Now let us understand what are aromatic compounds. Right? How the term aromaticity becomes a very important. See, when you consider about benzene, okay, and why that extra stability it is getting, we have just seen earlier in the case of delta H hydrogenation, it has very high resonance energy, which means it is attaining an extra stability. So if you analyze through its molecular orbital theory, it has been found that it has maximum number of electrons in the bonding molecular orbitals, and there won't be any electrons present in non-bonding, neither there will be electrons present in anti-bonding molecular orbital. And that is the reason why benzene is attaining such level of stability. This is according to molecular orbital theory, understand that. So to make it more simpler to understand, what has been adopted is called a Frost diagram. So imagine the same benzene written in terms of this hexagon with this circle. This is called a Frost diagram. And midway through the center, draw a line. And that line represents non-bonding molecular orbital. Above that, whatever the orbitals which are present, they will all be anti-bonding molecular orbital. Below that line, any electrons are present, they will be bonding molecular orbitals. Okay, students. Now, here the distribution is always about pi electrons only, not sigma. So all this distribution is about pi electrons, and this is the increasing energy order. Okay, so this is how the potential energy is varying. Imagine that. So more the number of electrons that comes towards the anti-bonding molecular orbital, more potential energy, less stability. More the electrons in bonding molecular orbital, less potential energy, more stability. Now imagine when it comes to benzene, this is how the structure is. Okay, always write this structure and then write a line on it and then distribute the pi electrons. How many pi electrons are there, beta? 6 pi electrons or 3 pi bonds, correct? So first electrons will enter here according to the Hund's rule, Aufbau's rule. According to the Aufbau's rules, lowest energy orbital should get the electrons first. Then we will have, according to Hund's rule, first electron, second electron, third electron, fourth electron. It will go here because both of them have same energy. Next 4 electrons are done, correct? So total we had 6 electrons to distribute, 2, 4, 6, all of them are distributed. So there are no electrons which will come on non-bonding molecular orbital, neither they will come on anti-bonding molecular orbital. Everybody, is this clear? It is just to simplify and make us understand, instead of writing the entire molecular orbital configuration, this is an easy way of understanding. Okay, so from here we can figure out that according to Frost diagram, we can figure out that electrons in benzene, the pi electrons in benzene are always in the bonded kind of pi orbitals. Hence, they attain high stability. Got it? And this type of a pattern, this type of a Frost diagram pattern is observed by other aromatic compounds also, but there is a certain property they must satisfy. What are those properties? First, all those molecules should be cyclic. Like benzene, if you consider with naphthalene, naphthalene should also be having the same property as this. They should be cyclic. Second, they should be planar. Either they can be sp or sp2 hybridized, but they must be planar. Most of the cases we will see they are only sp2 hybridized. Okay, beta. So cyclic, and they must be planar. Then continuous conjugation must be there. You can see here there is a continuous conjugation. There is a movement of pi bonds moving all the way throughout the benzene ring. So there must be continuous conjugation happening. Next, if you see, it must follow something called Huckel's rule. Huckel's rule is nothing but a VBT way, a valence bond theory way of explaining the aromaticity. So basically, Huckel's rule tells us that the number of pi bonds present in the molecule should be 4n plus 2. If we have 4n plus 2 pi electrons, then we say it is following Huckel's rule. For example, here n could be any whole number, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Suppose if I put n is equal to 0, n is equal to 0, I'll get 2 pi electrons. If I put n is equal to 1, 6 pi electrons. Now compare that with benzene. Benzene also has 6 pi electrons, which means benzene is following Huckel's rule. Everybody understood this point? Or the other way of looking at it, either you check out Huckel's rule or you check out odd number of pi bonds. Here you have 3. 3 is an odd number. So odd number of pi bonds will usually give aromatic nature. Okay, students. Next, it should be diamagnetic in nature. You can see that there are no unpaired electrons in molecular orbital. We have written that 2, 2, and 2. All of them are paired electrons. So it is diamagnetic. And the same diamagnetic term, when you use NMR spectrography, this is to analyze, NMR spectrography is to analyze all the atoms in a molecule. Okay, where they are located, how they are located, what is the bond, whether it is a double bond, triple bond, whether there is resonance. All of this information can be fetched from NMR spectrography. Okay, so in NMR spectrography, same diamagnetic molecule, we term it as diatropic ring current. Okay, everyone. So even if you see this term in the exam, it meant the same thing about diamagnetic aromatic compounds. Okay. Next, it should be highly stable. So these are the properties we expect from an aromatic compound. Okay. Let me take few examples here. Benzene. Benzene definitely has, 6 pi electrons or 3 odd electrons or 3 pi bonds. So which is definitely aromatic in nature. And rest all things are also favored here. You can see the ring current is there, which means the resonance is happening throughout the ring. Every carbon in this is participating in resonance. All of them are sp2 hybridized only. So everything has been perfectly followed. Here you can see there are 2 pi electrons, only 2 pi electrons, or 1 pi bond. There is only 1 pi bond here. And it is all planar, sp2, sp2, sp2. All of them are planar, and there is a ring current, which means pi bond can be moved here. Then again it will move on to this carbon, next carbon here. So it will keep moving throughout these 3 carbons. So definitely this is also aromatic. Okay, students. Next one, see here, number of pi bonds. How many do we have? We have 2 pi bonds here. And if I keep writing the canonicals of the same, we have written the canonicals for this, if you recall. We have plus and plus here. Got it? If I write the canonical here, we'll get plus and plus here. If I write one more canonical, I will get plus and plus here. So canonical, you can see the pi bond is moving throughout the ring. So there is a ring current. So we can say that this also has 2 pi electrons or 1 pi bond, which is odd number of pi bond. Hence, this is also showing aromatic. This is also an aromatic compound. Same way here you can see this lone pair. See, wherever there is a negative charge, which means it is a lone pair. So there is a lone pair that can also participate. From here you can see it can participate in resonance. This pi will shift and this pi will shift. That will keep on shifting. Correct? So which means this pi will keep on moving around this entire ring. So here how many pi bonds are there? 6 pi electrons are present, including that lone pair, because that is also participating. Or how many number of pi bonds are there? 3 pi bonds. So 3 pi bonds. Don't think only, sir, there are 2 pi bonds. Even this minus will become a pi bond in one of the canonicals. Got it? So there are 3 pi bonds here, 6 pi electrons. That will also become aromatic in nature. Here, this lone pair will participate. This will move up, this will come down, and the entire ring will become resonance. So 6 pi electrons are participating in resonance, or 3 pi bonds are participating in resonance. Hence this is also aromatic in nature. Okay, same way there is an empty orbital in boron, so that will accept electrons. So these electrons can move here. From that, electrons can move here, and from here they can move here, and from here they can move here. So you can see that this lone pair is participant, this lone pair is participant, and this pi bond is participating. So I can have 6 pi electrons in the ring, or 3 pi bonds. Okay, everybody, any doubt you can ask me now. First make a note of this. You have earlier learned about diamagnetic molecules, na beta? Diamagnetic molecules are those which has no unpaired electrons, correct? So, if any molecule which does not have unpaired electrons, they are called diamagnetic. But if the same diamagnetic nature is appeared in aromatic compounds, we call it as diatropic ring current. Okay. Now let's check out on the anti-aromatic side. All right. Suppose if I take this molecule and try to write the FOSS diagram. So there are four corners. So first I'll write four corners here, and I will make a non-bonding molecular orbital line, energy line here. Above whatever the orbitals they will be anti-bonding molecular orbital. Below they will be bonding molecular orbital. Okay. Now if you observe the electrons here, there are two pi bonds, means 4 electrons. So first 2 electrons I will give it in the bonding kind. Next 2 electrons will be on the non-bonding molecular orbitals. Okay, so 2 electrons would be present here at this energy level, right? See, when you have bonding molecular orbital, that brings stability. If you have non-bonding or anti-bonding molecular orbital, that will always bring instability to the molecule. So you can see there are two unpaired electrons in a non-bonding molecular orbital. So overall it will give an instability to the molecule, or the molecule will be highly unstable. So this molecule, despite appearing to have resonance, we will see, sir, there is a resonance here. So there is a nice resonance. Despite having resonance here, this is highly unstable species. Got it? And what are the conditions on which we are saying this is highly unstable? Now you might think, sir, what about this case? This is an open chain. Here resonance is all valid. There is no issues with this. This is a highly stable molecule. But the minute it converts into a cyclic form, and that too when it is following these rules, then it is highly unstable. Now see, what are those properties? First, it should be cyclic. Second, it should be planar. Here also there should be continuous conjugation. While it is not following Huckel's rule, it is following 4n pi rule. Huckel's rule is 4n plus 2 pi rule, right? You can check out. It is 4n plus 2 pi electrons rule. Here it is 4n pi electron rule, which means if n is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, if you write any of them, either you should have 4 pi electrons, 8 pi electrons, 12, 16, and so on. If this numbered pi electrons are present, or even number of pi bonds are present in the cyclic, planar, and continuous conjugation, then they will be anti-aromatic. Okay, and you can see it has two unpaired electrons, so its nature would be paramagnetic. So that's why, and it is in a ring current, which means it is a continuous conjugation, hence we can call it as paratropic ring current also. Aromatic compounds are diatropic, anti-aromatic compounds are paratropic ring currents. Correct. So these are the rules you need to, these are the properties you need to check when it comes to anti-aromatic. Let me repeat that. First, it should be cyclic. Second, it should be planar. Third, continuous conjugation must be there. It must follow 4n pi electron rule. It must have paramagnetic nature. It must show paratropic ring current. Okay, then we call it as non-bonding, anti-aromatic. Last thing, because of all of these properties, it will be unstable species. So check this. Now, since this species is unstable, it is highly reactive with any species. For example, if I react with sodium, sodium is a source of releasing electrons. Sodium's role in entire organic reactions, even in inorganic reactions, is to immediately release electrons into the solution because it is more stable in Na plus state. So if at all I give, sodium and add to this solution, add to this cyclobutadiene solution, what would happen? Immediately it will accept 2 electrons and convert itself into this form. It will immediately convert into minus and to Na plus. Okay, this is what it converts into. Why it will convert into this form? Now if you see, this will act like a pi, this will act like a pi, and this, there is already a pi. Observe it, everybody. Here we have minus charge, minus charge. Minus means there is electron pair. So this electron pair will move here and this will move here. So what would happen? That electron pair can immediately be treated as an pi bond, and this electron pair, sorry, this minus charge is already there. Okay, so again this will become, here you can see this will become double bond here, this can become double bond here, and that pi bond can keep moving. So I can make sure that once the way it has moved to this side, I can move it onto any other side I want. So which means, suppose if I want on to move on to this side here, I can make it to move on to that side. So what does it happen now? Now this will become pi bond here, minus charge and minus charge here. Okay, I can make the same type of a movement here also with this moving here. Got it? From here, from this bond I'll show you, sorry. Right, so from the earlier bond, when there is minus here, I can move this bond here, right, and I can make this pi bond minus charge to come here. So you can see the same thing can happen again and again. So minus charge and pi bond is moving in all the locations. Got it, everybody? Can you see that? So you can move it this way also. I can move it this way because this one I haven't shown, I guess. Right, you can move it this way. So I can make that minus charge to appear there, here. So can you see pi bond has moved on to all carbons here, which means it is aromatic. Why it is aromatic? Count the number of pi bonds: 1, 2, and 3. 3 pi bonds. 3 pi bond is an odd number of pi bonds. Odd number of pi bonds will generate aromaticity. So anti-aromatic can immediately become aromatic if it accepts 2 electrons in this case. Now the other way is also fine. If you react with a Fe+3, which is an oxidizing agent, this is an oxidizing agent, so it will immediately reduce itself to Fe+2. So which means it will take away both the electrons and keep this as plus and plus. We just learned that if you have 1 pi with 2 plus, that is also aromatic. So it will immediately become aromatic. Everybody clear? Or if you leave it for long standing, here you can see now beta, when it comes to potential energy, because the electrons are present in non-bonding, its potential energy is very high. They are not only in bonding molecular orbital, correct? And because they have high potential energy, that's why they are more reactive, and they are trying to become a low potential state by achieving aromatic nature. Unstable species will always like to become stable species, yes or no? And if you given any reagent like this, they will immediately turn into stable species. Okay, now if you see the molecule, this is actually unstable at room temperature. Okay, this sorry, is this, yeah, if you see this molecule, this is highly unstable at room temperature. So if you keep it around room temperature, it will immediately dimerize, even any reagent is not needed. So it will immediately dimerize. Okay, always think anti-aromatic groups as this way beta. It is like a pi bond and a diradical. It is like a diradical. 2 radicals are present on it. And imagine there is one more molecule like this, which is approaching from the other end with 2 diradicals. What does diradicals do beta? They will immediately close at a sigma bond. So we will have a bond like this. This type of a molecule is formed. So it will dimerize. A bond is formed here, one bond is formed here. So this is a dimerized product. Now it has lost its aromaticity, it has lost its anti-aromatic nature. These type of molecules are called non-aromatic. Anything which is not showing aromaticity or anti-aromaticity, they are non-aromatic molecules. Got it? And remember the stability. Aromatic is more stable than non-aromatic, and the least stable is anti-aromatic. Anything if you have anti-aromatic, that is highly unstable. So it will it is better to become either aromatic or non-aromatic instead of staying as an anti-aromatic. Point is clear, everybody? So in the case of non-aromatic, if you check out, any one property is sufficient. If it is an open chain, definitely it is non-aromatic. Whether there is resonance present or not, any open chain molecule is always non-aromatic compound. Next, non-planar. Even if it is cyclic and non-planar, like for example cyclohexane, got it? Non-aromatic. One double bond, non-aromatic. Two double bonds, non-aromatic. Because this is sp3, still it is non-planar. So as long as anything which is non-planar, it is always going to be non-aromatic. And there should not be continuous conjugation. No continuous conjugation. That is also non-aromatic. No ring current. That is also non-aromatic. Okay. So non-aromatic is simply anything which is not aromatic, and anti-aromatic is always non-aromatic. Clear, everybody? And stability will always be like this. Aromatic is more stable than non-aromatic. And lastly, anti-aromatic. Anti-aromatic is highly unstable because of its distribution of electrons in non-bonding molecular orbital. Please make a note, everyone. This molecule is non-aromatic, beta. It is sp3, 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 sp3 carbons, correct? Means even if you have ring, for instance, got it? Like this, and there are two pi bonds. This pi bond is moving only till here, na? So this kind of a current is developed. Understood? The current, if it is over the entire ring, then that is called a complete current ring or ring current, which will have either an attraction or repulsion with the magnetic field.